Welcome to Organic Chemistry lectures delivered by Sheetal Badkurki. This lecture will be comprising of carbohydrates and various role of carbohydrates that they play in the nature. At the end of the session, student will be able to explain the various classifications of carbohydrates, their stereochemical isomers, and also various chemical reactions of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, commonly referred to as sugars, are abundant in nature. They represent a significant portion of the food that we eat, providing us energy necessary to drive most of the biochemical process in our bodies. They are the building blocks used to provide structural rigidity for living organisms, including wood found in the trees and the shells of lobster. Even our DNA is assembled from derivatives of carbohydrates. The earliest carbohydrate to be isolated and purified was originally considered to be hydrates of carbon. So, carbohydrate consists of only carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Therefore, empirical formula is CH2O n times. So, this n time can be n is where n is equal to 1, 2, 3, it goes on and the classification is based on the n. We classify based on the n also, which we will see later. Carbohydrate comes primarily from the plants, however animals can also biosynthesize them. The carbon cycle describes the process by which carbon is recycled on our planet. Energy from the sun is stored in the plants, which uses photosynthesis to convert carbon dioxide and water to glucose and oxygen. In reverse process, energy is produced when animal oxidize glucose during respiration process. Glucose was known to have the molecular formula C6H12O6. In that way, the number of carbon here is 6. As the empirical formula says H2, so 6 into 2 is 12. So therefore 12 hydrogen and oxygen being 6 in nature with respect to glucose. It can be rearranged as C6 into H2O into 6 times to indicate 6 carbon atoms and 6 water molecules. Carbohydrates are now understood to be polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones in nature. Energy from the sun is absorbed by vegetation and is used to convert carbon dioxide molecule in a larger organic compounds into a larger organic compounds. These organic compounds such as glucose have CC and CH bonds which are higher in energy than the C double bond O bond in carbon dioxide. Our bodies utilizes a series of chemical reaction to convert these compounds back into carbon dioxide, thereby releasing the stored solar energy. In this process, we return carbon dioxide and water back to the environment to be recycled. In essence, our bodies are powered in large part by solar energy that has been stored in the form of glucose molecules. In short, carbohydrates are ubiquitous and they play a part in dozens of biochemical processes. Classification of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates fall into three larger structural classes that are based upon the number of structural units they contain. Monosaccharides are the simplest carbohydrates. They typically contain 3 to 6 carbon atom and cannot be hydrolyzed into smaller molecules. Example, glucose or fructose. Disaccharides, carbohydrates that can be hydrolyzed into 2 monosaccharide units. Example, sucrose, which is hydrolyzed into glucose and fructose. Monosaccharides in oligo and polysaccharides are linked by acetals or ketol bonds called as glycosidic linkage or glycosidic bonds in carbohydrate chemistry. Further, oligosaccharides contain few monosaccharides, typically from 2 to 10 unit or so. Hydrolysis of oligosaccharides may yield identical monosaccharides or two or more different monosaccharides. Oligosaccharides are also called as disaccharides or trisaccharides and so on, depending upon the number of linked monosaccharides unit. The disaccharide lactose or milk sugar, for example, contain one molecule of glucose and one molecule of galactose. Maltose, another disaccharide, do contain 2 units of glucose. Now, polysaccharides. Let us see polysaccharides. Polysaccharides contain thousands of covalently linked monosaccharides. They are polymeric in nature. Those with only one type of monosaccharide subunit are called as homopolysaccharides. Example include starch and cellulose made by plants. Hydrolysis of monopolysaccharide cellulose yields only glucose, whereas glycogen, sometimes called animal starch, is another homopolysaccharides of glucose. Polysaccharides with more than one type of monosaccharides are called heteropolysaccharides. The monosaccharides in oligo and polysaccharides are always linked by acetal and ketal bonds. Therefore, we call them as glycosidic linkages or bonds in carbohydrate chemistry. These bonds link the aldehydes or ketones side of the monosaccharide and a hydroxy group of another monosaccharide. Hydrolysis of glycosidic bond yield the component monosaccharides. Monosaccharides having more than 3 to 8 carbons in a chain with one carbon in a carbonyl group and the other attached to another carbon group can be further classified depending upon what is the functionality there, which is highly oxidizable functional group. Monosaccharides are called aldose if they are mostly highly oxidized functional group is an aldehyde, and ketones if their mostly highly oxidized functional group is a ketone. The suffix OSE indicates that a compound is a carbohydrate. The prefix aldo or keto indicates that the compound is an aldehyde or a ketone. Further, prefix tri, tetra, penta, hexa indicate the number of carbon atom in an aldose or a ketose. Aldones are numbered to the carbon atom. Ketones are numbered from the end of the carbon chain closest to the carbonyl carbon atom. In the slide given to us is the aldotriose, ketotriose, tetrose, aldopentose, ketohexose. Hexose, you can see the number of carbon is 6, pentose number of carbon is 5, tetro number of carbon is 4, trio because number of carbon is tri. Aldo because aldehyde functionality here, here it is a ose because it is a ketose, it is a keto functionality. Again in ribose is the aldehyde functionality and in fructose is the keto functionality. So we classify them as triose, tetrose, pentose, hexose, heptose, octose and so on, depending on the number of the carbons, The empirical formula being CH2ON. Correspondingly, the number of hydrogen and oxygens are to be written depending on the number of the carbon atom. D and L sugars and Fischer projections in carbohydrates. Recall that in Fischer projection formula, a vertical line represents the carbon chain. Groups attached to the end of the vertical line represents bonds going into the page and the horizontal represents the bonds going out of the page. By convention, the carbonyl carbon atom, that is the most oxidizable carbon atom, whether it is aldehyde or a ketose, is placed near the top in the Fischer projection formula. The simplest aldose glyceraldehyde indicated in the slide here has 3 carbon atom, one of which is a stereogenic center because this carbon is stereogenic in center having 4 different groups attached to it: hydrogen, aldehyde, hydroxy and a CH2OH group. Therefore, it is a stereogenic center. This aldotriose, because it contains 3 carbon, therefore triose, and it is a aldehyde functionality, therefore aldotriose can exist in two enantiomeric forms. The naturally occurring R isomer is dextrorotatory, that is, it rotates the light in a clockwise direction, positive direction, having specific rotation as plus 13.5 degree. However, we recall that the designation R defines the configuration of the chiral carbon and that the optical rotation of R stereoisomer is experimental parameter that can be either positive or either negative. That means R can be even positive or negative. The Fischer projection formula is indicated here. This is the Fischer projection formula, which is having D form. We can see that the OH is on the right hand side. When I am standing towards the board, it is on my right hand side. Therefore, it gives a clockwise momentum as the priority, numbering priority is OH gets 1 priority, then aldehyde gets the 2nd priority and the 3rd gets the methanol CH2OH as the 3rd priority. Hydrogen being the least in the priority group. This has been done in the stereochemistry. We have seen in the stereochemistry how a Fischer projection formula is written, how the priority groups are numbered, and how we determine whether it is a clockwise or a counterclockwise momentum. In Fischer projection formula, the carbon atom of the chain are not shown but are implied. They exist where the horizontal and vertical line crosses. Monosaccharides with 2 or more stereogenic centers are arranged in the carbon backbone drawn vertically in the plane of the page with the attached hydrogen atoms and the hydroxy groups pointing out to the right and left of the carbon chain. The D and L classification are based on the glyceraldehyde shown in the slide. Each enantiomer refracts the plane of fluorescent light in equal magnitude but in opposite direction. In glyceraldehyde, L rotates the plane to the left, whereas the D represents the right. However, this is not true for all the sugars. There are some exceptions which we will come across when we move towards further, when we move down the lecture. L-glyceraldehyde has hydroxyl group on the left hand and D-glyceraldehyde has the hydroxyl group on the right hand side. Remember this. To add few more, D and L, I said about chiral carbon, it is also called a symmetric carbon also because of 4 different groups. To add few more example for D and L form, we can see that we have a L-glyceraldehyde where the OH is represented on the left hand side when I am standing towards the board. Similarly, when I am facing the board, right? This is a D-glyceraldehyde where the OH group is on the right hand side. We do have L-ribose where the OH are on the left hand side and D-ribose where the OH is on the right hand side. The concept of D and L is clear by now. For sugar with more than one chiral center, D and L refer to the asymmetric carbon farthest from the aldehydes or the ketones. Most naturally occurring sugars are D isomers. D and L sugars are always mirror images of one another The number of stereoisomers is given by 2 to the power of n, where n is the number of asymmetric centers. As the number of n increases, then so do the stereoisomers has to increase. The 6 carbon aldose has 4 asymmetric centers here. Thus 2 to the power of 4 we have 16 isomers, out of which 8 are D sugars and 8 are L sugars. So if we go on making the permutation and combination and arranging, then we will attain all the 16 isomers. So D and L is very clear. This is my D aldose and this is the L aldose. Three important monosaccharides, that is, first one is the D-glucose, which exists in higher proportion in the nature, is a primary fuel for our cells required for many tissues, and the source being vegetables and the fruits are the major source, that is plant source. Blood glucose is maintained within a very small range. Some glucose is stored as a glycogen, excess is stored as a fat, and whenever there is starvation or anything, then this glycogen comes into picture, and where we break down that into glucose. D-galactose comes from the hydrolysis of a disaccharide lactose, which is again used in cell membrane of central nervous system, converted by an enzyme into glucose, that is galactose help in converting this, galactase help in converting galactose to glucose. The third one is D-fructose, which is a sweetest carbohydrates present in nature, in fruits, ripened fruits, etc. It is also converted by an enzyme, fructase. So fructase help to convert fructose to glucose. We also obtain it by the hydrolysis of disaccharide sucrose. So this is the structure of D-glucose. We can see this is the structure of D-glucose. L-glucose, note again, D on the right hand side, the hydroxy groups are placed. L, the hydroxy groups are placed on the left hand side. D-galactose, again D, because the hydroxy group which is far from the aldehyde group is this one, is placed in the right hand side. D-fructose, again from the keto group, the hydroxy group is placed on the right hand side, this one, therefore it is D-fructose. So note that in nature only D enantiomers of sugars are used. The conversion of one monosaccharide into another requires an inversion of configuration. At least one stereogenic center should be there. For compound that contain 2 or more stereogenic center, the inversion of a single stereogenic center changes the physical property of the molecule, because the resulting isomer is a distereomer, not an enantiomer. Because there are 2 or more hydroxyl group in monosaccharide, the selective inversion of configuration at one stereogenic center usually require the selective protection of other hydroxy group in the form of cyclic acetals. That means we are going to protect the other hydroxy group apart from the hydroxy group wherein we want to do the inversion. So hydroxyl group being alcohol in function, the hydroxy groups are here basically secondary alcohols, therefore we can protect them with the help of acetals and ketals. So the most preferred protection is by cyclic acetals or cyclic ketals. In principle, chemical reactions can invert the configuration at any stereogenic center, but in practice the reaction requires many synthetic steps. Each step involves chemistry that we have already discussed in the protection and deprotection part in our one of the lecture. Now, single conversion, that is conversion of one of the hydroxy group or inversion of one of the single hydroxy group in simple at one particular carbon center when I am doing, that is stereogenic center when I am doing, this whole process is called as epimerization. One stereogenic center of a monosaccharide can be easily inverted, provided if I have protected other hydroxy groups, and after subsequent inversion I will deprotect them. Distereomers that contain two or more stereogenic carbon atom but differ in configuration at only one stereogenic center are called as epimers. That means after inversion, only that OH has been inverted, whereas the rest, when I deprotect the hydroxy groups, at the second carbon, third carbon, fourth carbon, fifth carbon, they remain the same. Only one stereogenic center inversion has been happened. Therefore, we call them as epimers. For example, we can see that here D-glucose and D-galactose are epimers. D-glucose and D-galactose are epimers. Why they are epimers? At the fourth carbon from the aldehyde in D-glucose, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the fourth carbon. The hydroxy group is on my right hand side. Whereas D-galactose, again from the aldehyde, the fourth carbon bearing the hydroxy group is on my left hand side when I am facing towards the boat. Therefore, it is epimer. Only the configuration at the fourth stereogenic center carbon is inverted, whereas C1, C2, C3, I need to say it as C2, C3 and C5 remains the same. The hydroxy groups in both galactose and glucose are same. So what is that being changed is at C4 stereogenic center, carbon 4, there is this stereogenic center carbon, there is change in the presentation of hydroxy group. One is on the right hand side, I call it as D-glucose, and the other is on the left hand side, I call it as galactose. So they are now epimers. Similarly, D-glucose and D-mannose are again epimers. Why? Because the stereogenic center carbon 2 from the aldehyde, when I step down, the carbon 2 here, this one, has the hydroxy group on the right hand side. Whereas in D-mannose, the stereogenic center carbon 2 with respect to aldehyde, here the OH group is on my left hand side. Therefore, it is D-mannose. So, if I carefully observe, the stereogenic, only at this second carbon stereogenic center, the hydroxy group is being inverted, whereas C3, C4, C5 remains the same. Therefore, D-glucose and D-mannose are again epimers. Please note, I said D-glucose and D-galactose are epimer, but at the fourth carbon stereogenic center. And D-glucose and D-mannose are epimers because of the stereogenic center second, where the hydroxy groups are at different positions. Now I cannot make a conclusion saying that D-galactose and D-mannose are going to be epimers, because their stereogenic centers are going to be differing in the carbon, stereogenic carbon. Therefore, they will never become a epimer. They are epimer to the glucose. That doesn't mean they will be epimer to one another. When I am saying epimer, then I need to restrict myself to one of the stereogenic centers. Polysaccharides. Polysaccharides contain many monosaccharide unit. If they are all the same, the molecule is homopolysaccharides. The polymer amylose and amylopectin are example of homopolysaccharides. Whereas if there are different monosaccharides, then we call them as heteropolysaccharides. Example, agar, pectins are different heteropolysaccharides. Now cellulose, if you look into cellulose, this is the 1,4-glycosidic bond. We can see that the hydroxy group of this glucose in it is linking to this. Similarly here, again they are linked and again they are linked. So we call this as, this is a beta position, whereas if the bottom hydroxy group or hydrogen is present, then it becomes alpha. Now this is beta. So this is beta, therefore the terminology beta stands here, and 1,4 because from one position We start from here 1, 2, 3, 4. Therefore 1 is because of this, 4 dash because this glucose unit, if I start number from here 1, 2, 3, 4, this becomes 4 dash. Therefore 1 and 4 dash, glycosidic bond, glycosidic linkage. So we can see that all the monomers are simple glucose units which are getting polymerized by this beta 1,4 dash glycosidic bondage. Similarly, amylase, you can see amylase also here, and amylopectin. Amylase and amylopectin. So whenever we talk about starch, starch contains both amylose as well as amylopectin. Heteropolysaccharides include hyaluronic acid, heparin, an anticoagulant in the blood that has been present. The structure of heteropolysaccharides are more complex than the homopolysaccharides because it depends upon which monosaccharide is linking to the other monosaccharides. The homopolysaccharides starch contain only glucose, but whereas if we look it into the heteropolysaccharide, then again this unit is going to be changing. One will be, if say one is glucose, the other one may be other monosaccharide. It will not be the similar monosaccharide. It can be fructose and so on, right? Starch is synthesized by plants. Animal contain a glucose storage polymer that is closely related to a starch called glycogen. Glycogen resembles amylopectin, but glycogen has more and shorter branches than amylopectin. So that is what is shown here, right? Glycogen resembles amylopectin, but glycogen has more and shorter branches than the amylopectin. So, and it depends upon the average chain length, which is in glycogen it is around 12 glucose unit. Glycogen has molecular weight greater than the 3 millions, that is a very quite high, and it is a major source of metabolic energy during the periods of diminished food intake, that is during the starvation. Although cells throughout the body stores glycogen, the liver stores the largest amount of all. And an average adult carries enough glycogens for about 15 hours for normal activity. But if it is a sports person, then this comes down to 5 hours, 6 hours. It depends upon what kind of sports activity he is indulged. Structure of monosaccharides. Glucose is one of the most important physiological and biomedicinal monosaccharides. It can be represented in 3 different forms, that is in straight chain form, ring form, or boat and chain form. So all the forms are represented here. So this is a straight chain form, which is the D-glucose. Now from a straight chain, we are going to write a cyclic structure of the monosaccharide. So this structure, this cyclic form, we call it as pyranose form of monosaccharide. Compound containing both OH group and an aldehyde group will undergo an intramolecular process to form a cyclic hemiacetal. So it is going to form a cyclic hemiacetal which with a favorable equilibrium constant. A similar equilibrium between open and closed form is observed for carbohydrates also. For example, if I take here in my slide D-glucose, which exists in both open as well as in closed form. So the closed form, which we call it as pyranose form or the ring form, is also known as Haworth projection, indicating the configuration at each chiral center. So in the cyclic form, the ring is called pyranose, named after pyrene, a simple compound that possesses 6-membered ring with oxygen. Therefore, it is pyrene ring. This equilibrium greatly favors the formation of a cyclic hemiacetal, that is, D-glucose exists almost exclusively in cyclic hemiacetal form, which we call it as D-glucopyranose. D-glucopyranose. So, which is indicated again in a Fischer structure formula only, that is straight chain formula we are indicating here. This D-glucose exists exclusively in the cyclic hemiacetal, represented as D-glucopyranose, and only a trace amount of the open chain form exists in the equilibrium, at the equilibrium. So, when a D-glucose is closed into a cyclic hemiacetal, two different stereoisomers of D-glucopyranose can be written. The aldehyde carbon C1 becomes a chiral center, and both configuration for the new chiral centers are possible. The C1 position is called anomeric carbon and the stereoisomer is called anomer. The two anomers are designated as alpha D glucopyranose and beta D glucopyranose. So herein we are indicating in the slide the alpha D glucopyranose. If the OH again is on this side, then it becomes beta D glucopyranose. Please note the spelling is has to be written as HAWORTH. That is the correct one. A is missing here. Now, if the hydroxy group is pointing the downward, right, then it is alpha, whereas if it is pointing the upward, it is the beta. So here in slide indicated is the alpha anomer. Similarly, it can be beta D glucopyranose, that is beta anomer. In a simple, if I have to say, then alpha anomer, the hydroxy group at the anomeric position is trans to CH2OH. Trans to CH2OH. What does that mean? So here is my CH2OH, and this, if you look into it, they are in trans position, they are in opposite position. But if it is above here, then they are cis position. So remember that, I repeat again, in alpha anomer, the hydroxy group at the anomeric position is trans to CH2OH. While in beta anomer, the hydroxy group is cis to CH2O group. Cis to CH2OH group. An equilibrium is established between alpha and beta D-glucopyranose with an equilibrium favoring the beta anomer. The open chain form exhibits only a minimal presence at equilibrium, which is less than 0.01%, but it is important nonetheless because it serves as the intermediate for the equilibrium between the alpha and the beta anomers. So that's what exactly I have indicated here. So this is alpha pyranose, whereas this is beta pyranose. So this is my open form. So cyclic form which we attained. So cyclic acetal has been formed here. Cyclic acetal has been formed here. And this is the open chain form where we expect the existence to be at around 0.01%, because between alpha D and beta D, this is the intermediate. This is the intermediate for equilibration between the two anomers, that is alpha and beta. So we can see that alpha hydroxy, in alpha the hydroxy group is exactly in the trans position to CH2OH, whereas in beta it is at the cis position. So cis position, right? So this is, let us see one more example. Let us draw the structure of alpha D. The D has to be capital here. Galactopyranose. Draw the structures of alpha D galactopyranose. So this is our D galactose. Sorry. First, let us write the cyclic structure. So this is the cyclic structure written here. So this OH and this is going to be linking, this, that is 1 and 5 are going to link. So it is clearly indicated 1 and 5 are linking with the help of oxygen, aldehyde oxygen. Alright. Cyclization form is written, that is alpha pyranose form we wrote it. When drawing a pyranose ring, the accepted convention is always to place the oxygen atom in the back right position. Now we must account for all the carbon atoms. A pyranose ring contains only 5 carbon atoms, the sixth one being oxygen there, but D-galactose has 6 carbon. That means one of the carbon has to go as CH2OH, and it is connected to C5. Therefore, the fifth in the pyranose structure, it is clearly indicated that the fifth carbon has the sixth carbon chain, which is CH2OH. Alright. The D indicates the CH2O group must be in the up position in the pyranose ring, which is indicated here in the up position in the pyranose ring. And please note, now I am going to place the hydroxy group. The hydroxy group I need to place, and given to me is it is alpha anomer. Therefore, I am going to place the OH at the C1 carbon at the bottom such that it is trans to the CH2OH. It is trans to the CH2OH. If they had asked me to write beta, then I would have written above. Making it as cis. But given to me is alpha, therefore I have written it at the bottom. I repeat again, configuration at one of the position of the pyranose ring has to be indicated for OH as well as for CH2OH. Therefore, the configuration at C1, that is anomeric carbon, is conveyed in the name of the pyranose ring as alpha, and that means that the OH group at the C1 position must be down, which is trans to the CH2OH carbon. So it is trans to the CH2OH carbon. So this much we were able to write. Now let us place on the hydroxy group. So number the carbons from the 1 carbon, go on numbering 2, 3, 4, 5. The sixth one is already written there as CH2OH, so nothing to do with the sixth one. Whereas the first one we wrote it, which is trans to the CH2OH, so the second has to be written. Look at the configuration of the second, which is exactly opposite to the second one. It is exactly opposite to the second one. Therefore, I am going to place the remaining chiral center C2, C3, C4 in this form and write the OH group depending upon where they are present. These are present on the left hand direction, therefore it goes back side, it goes up, and the fourth carbon also goes. Fourth and fifth carbons are on the same side, therefore they go up there, here, and the fifth one definitely is having the fifth carbon. Now it has formed a epimer, so there is no OH for me here, because this OH and this OH is nothing but my oxygen, which is indicated here. I hope you are getting it, right? Therefore, the complete structure of pyranose ring is written now. I repeat again, already we have written the C1 carbon here, and that has a hydroxy group because this bond is breaking and forming a hydroxy group, which is in transposition to the sixth carbon, that is C6H2OH, which is a side chain to the fifth carbon. After that, the next three hydroxy group, which are at second carbon, third carbon, fourth carbon, has to be placed, and they are placed in this manner. Second one is placed at the bottom, whereas third and fourth, they are on the same side, therefore they are placed on the upper side, and the fifth carbon OH, please note, it is already forming a anomer, therefore it is indicating with it is interacting with the C1 and the C5 as forming as a cyclic linkage, oxygen as the linkage, that has been indicated here. This is the alpha D galactopyranose structure. So we should be able to write the any given open chain structure or fissure structure to any pyranose form. Now let us look into the chain and the fourth form of the structure representation for glucose. That's a three-dimensional representation of pyranose ring. Haworth projections are often used for drawing the cyclic form of D-glucose. While Haworth projections are extremely useful for showing configuration, they are not effective for communicating the conformation of a compound. A cyclic form of D-glucose will spend the majority of its time in a chair conformation. When drawing either a Haworth projection formula or a chain conformation, the convention is to place that the oxygen atoms in the upper rare right position, as highlighted here in both the structures in the red. Notice that in a cyclic form of D-glucose, all substituents can occupy equatorial position, which renders the compound particularly stable. And that's the main reason why glucose mostly exists most commonly existing in higher proportion in nature. Okay. When alpha D galactopyranose is given to us, when alpha D galactopyranose is given, how the structure has to be written from a Haworth to more stable chair form will be explained here. The first step that you have to do is draw the Haworth projection formula of the compound that is given to you is the D-galactose. So draw the Haworth structure of D-galactose. This compound can adapt to different chain conformations and we must determine which one is the most stable. So begin to draw one of the chain conformations. The oxygen atom, remember, top right, that is upper, ray right position. Put it on the ray right position. The following alternatives are not convenient for the reason indicated that oxygen is in the upper right corner but not in the rear. Oxygen in the rear right but not in the upper corner. Therefore, please try to put it in the upper rear right corner. That is more preferred. Okay. Now, drawing the appropriate skeleton is crucial here for drawing the chair conformation properly. Therefore, see that you draw the proper chain conformation. I would recall here how to place the the groups up and down, right? And then placed in the appropriate positions on the chair conformation. So I have indicated here as down, down, up, 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 and CH2H up. So that can also be written here in the form of down, down, up, up, and CH2H in the up. So this one of the two conformations that compound can adapt. Before drawing the ring flip to give the other chain conformation, first analyze, right? Specifically, we need to look at each substituent and determine whether it occupies an axial or a equatorial position. So recall what is axial and equatorial positions. In this case, two of the hydroxy groups occupy axial position and two occupy the equatorial position. The CH2OH definitely will occupy an equatorial position. Now please recall that a ring flip converts all axial position into equatorial and all equatorial into axial position. Also, one more recall that more stable chain conformation will be one in which the bulkier group, the largest group or the bulkier group is in the equatorial position. In this case, CH2OH is the largest group. So the most stable conformation will be for one in which the CH2OH will be in the equatorial position. The other chain conformations will be less stable, so it is not necessary to draw and flip them, right? This is generally the case for any D-aldohexose, right? So this is a conformation which we attain, the most stable conformation that has been written here. Identification test for carbohydrates. So basically, first let us do for reducing sugar. A carbohydrate that is oxidized by Tollens, Fehling's and Benedict's solution, right? Where in Tollens it gives silver mirror, whereas Fehling's or Benedict's copper plus 2 to copper 1, that is blue to red precipitate. These reactions of aldehydes and alpha hydroxy ketones give positive. All monosaccharides, both aldose and ketones and most disaccharides are reducing sugars. Sucrose, a disaccharides, is not a reducing sugar because it has been formed by a glycosidic linkage. Therefore, there is nothing to be reduced here. Therefore, it fails to undergo these tests. Glycosidic bondage, the anomeric hydroxy group, hydroxyl and hydroxy of another sugar or some other compound can join together, splitting out water molecule to form a new glycosidic bondage. So ROR, that is ether linkage, is going to be formed there. So methanol reacts with anomeric OH on glucose to form a methyl glycoside here. So you can see that a methyl glycoside is been formed there. OCH3 has been formed there, right? So this is now methyl glucopyranose. So this is methyl alpha D glucopyranose. Disaccharides, two monosaccharide units are linked by a glycosidic bond through hydroxy group. Three or more most popular disaccharides are maltose made up of, here you can see that it is glucopyranose, right, linked by alpha 1,4 dash, alpha 1,4 dash glucopyranose, pyranosyl and pyranose. Lactose, beta D galactopyranose with 1,4 dash beta D glucopyranose. Sucrose, alpha D glucopyranosyl beta D fructofuranacide. Right? Both of them are linked by 1 alpha and 2 beta. 1 alpha glucose, glucopyranosyl, 2 beta fructose. Therefore, this is the structure. Okay. Maltose, a cleavage product of starch, that is our example amylose, is a disaccharide with alpha 1,4 dash glycosidic linkage between C1 and C4 of the C2 of the OH of 2 glucose. So we can see here, right? So this they are going to link resulting in a formation of a new ether bond, that is we call this is acetal form and this is the hemiacetal form. So this was hemiacetal form and now this becomes hemiacetal and this is your acetal form. Both of them linked by a glycosidic linkage or a ether linkage. Sucrose again contain most common table sugar that is widely used, has a glycosidic bond linkage, anomeric hydroxyl of glucose and fructose. So two of them are going to bind here, or I can say that the linkage alpha 1 2 linkage is seen. That is alpha D glucopyranose will link to beta D fructopyranose. So 1 to 2 dash is the ether linkage that we are going to build here, right? And this is non-reducing. That's why it is non-reducing. Now let us see some more reactions of oxidation of monosaccharides. Say for example, I have a D-glucose here. With a suitable oxidizing agent, the aldehyde group of an aldose can be oxidized to yield a compound called aldonic acid. So we got aldonic acid. Here in case of mine, it is D-glucose that I am taking. In presence of any oxidizing agent, it becomes gluconic acid, D-gluconic acid. The reaction is observed for a wide variety of oxidizing agent. When a high yield is desired, a useful oxidizing agent is an aqueous solution of bromine buffered at to a pH 6 is generally used. The starting monosaccharide exists primarily as hemiacetal and the OH groups are not oxidized by this mild oxidizing agent. However, when we use a small amount of open chain form is present at the equilibrium, I said 0.01%, right? And it is the aldehyde group of the open chain form that reacts with the oxidizing agent forming aldonic acid. As the open chain form of glucose is converted into aldonic acid, the equilibrium is perturbed. This causes more of the glucose molecule to adapt a open chain form which then undergoes oxidation by a process that continues until all the glucose molecule which are present in the ring form break up to open form and then get oxidized completely. The oxidizing agent above will be oxidized or aldose. but not will not react towards any keto compound, right? So ketones lack the aldehydic hydrogen, that is the characteristics of an aldose. It is true that the ketos slowly equilibrate with the aldose via a process that is similar to epimerization, and we may therefore expect that a small concentration of ketos could be converted into aldose, which will certainly undergo oxidation, providing a pathway for the ketos to oxidize as well. However, the mild acidic condition employed, that is buffer pH 6, prevents isomerization from occurring, and under this condition ketos do not undergo isomerization to aldose and then further fail to undergo oxidation. This is in fact provide a method for distinguishing between the aldose and the ketones. In contrast, there are other oxidizing agents that can employ conditions under which isomerization can occur. These alternative reagents can oxidize ketos as well as aldose. Example of such oxidizing agents include Tolbin's reagent, that is Ag plus in aqueous ammonia, Fehling reagent Cu plus 2 in aqueous sodium tartarate, Benedict's Cu plus 2 in aqueous sodium tartarate, sodium citrate. All the three can be used as a chemical test for the presence of aldose or a ketose. The Tollens reagent indicate the presence of aldose or a ketose when the surface of reaction flask is coated with a metallic silver, while the other test indicates the presence of aldose and ketones with the formation of reddish precipitate, which was said in the last slide. So, a carbohydrate that tests positively for any of these three tests is said to be a reducing sugar, because carbohydrates can be reduced can reduce the oxidizing agent. Right? They undergo oxidation from an aldehyde to acid and help the oxidizing agent to get reduced. These chemical tests are useful to distinguish between aldehydes and ketones, aldose and ketose in simple, and their glycosides also. While aldose and ketose are reducing sugar, their corresponding glycosides are not at all reducing sugars, therefore they are non-reducing sugars. Glycosides do not exhibit ring opening reaction under neutral or basic conditions, and therefore they do not even have small quantity of open chain form of the aldehyde, open chain form of aldose or ketose, which can further, if it is a ketose, then it will become aldose and then undergo oxidation. But as there is no much favorable condition for the ring to open up into a chain form, therefore they fail to undergo oxidation. Whereas in presence of a strong oxidizing agent such as HNO3, then primarily hydroxyl group is oxidized, giving a dicarboxylic acid, which we call it as aldaric acid. This reaction involves the oxidation of both highlighted functional groups, that is aldehyde as well as the alcohol CH2OH. Both is going to get reduced, aldehyde as well as my CH2OH. Therefore, you end up into a dicarboxylic acid. We end up into a dicarboxylic acid. That's what is being indicated here. It is again indicating that by enzyme reactions I can selectively oxidize only the CH2OH without even disturbing the aldehyde functionality using enzymes as a enzymes. So enzymes, catalytic amount of enzymes are used there such that the alcohol is oxidized to carboxylic acid, whereas aldehyde is intact. So this is aldoronic acid. So similarly, glucose to gluconic acid. Reduction, let us see reduction. So carbonyl group of monosaccharide here, either an aldose or a ketone, is reduced to corresponding hydroxyl group using hydrogen as the reducing agent. So if it is an aldehyde, then we do end up into a primary alcohol, but if it is a ketose, then we do end up into a secondary alcohol, right? So product is the corresponding polyhydroxy alcohol. Sugar alcohol, that is sorbitol, which is generally used as a moisturizing agent in foods and cosmetics, and also as a sweetening agent in chewing gums, is obtained by the reduction process. So redox test again. Reactions in presence of strong bases like NaOH We can isomerize due to acidic proton there, therefore easily it is getting converted. So we end up into from a D-glucose, D-mannose and D-fructose are obtained there. Similarly, enolate ions can be written for D-mannose, and for D-fructose we do write ene-diol. So this is ene-diol. We have a ene here and diols are there. So these are the two diols. Therefore it is ene-diol. Whereas for mannose it is only the enolate ion. So you can see that it is a enolate ion at the C2 carbon. Reaction with methyl iodide, which is nothing but a esterification. Alcohol OH group of monosaccharide and disaccharides are converted to ether group upon treating with the methylating agent. Depending upon what is the number of methylating agent mole ratio, the hydroxy groups can be replaced. If I have only one mole, then one of the hydroxy group can be replaced. But if I have four methyl iodide group, methyl iodide proportion, then all the hydroxy groups in the OH of the OH can be replaced by methoxy group. So easily I can identify what is the how much number of hydroxy groups are present in any given unknown monosaccharides or disaccharides. Similarly, monosaccharides also can be converted to ester on reacting with the acetic anhydride. So acylation can happen, all the OH can be acylated there depending upon what is the mole ratio of the acetic anhydride that I am going to prefer. This reaction preferably takes place at the in presence of lower temperature. Reactions with alcohol, again most important reaction of monosaccharide is the conversion of hemiacetal into an acetal. Hemi means half acetal, acetal means a complete acetal. In presence of an alcohol and an acid there, so catalytic amount of acid is used. Products are known as glycosidic bonds. A bond between the oxygen of an alcohol and an acetal carbon is called glycosidic bond. So we wrote so many anomer and all. So in that way, all we obtained was a glycosidic linkage. So glycosidic linkage is obtained with the help of alcohol in presence of catalytic amount of acid. So mechanism, again I am not dealing the mechanism here, we know the mechanism because we have seen the acetal and hemiacetal in nucleophilic substitution reaction via addition, elimination or elimination addition process in aldehydes and ketones. Chain extension of aldose by Killian-Fischer synthesis. In 1886, Heinrich Killian from German chemist observed that an aldose will react with the HCN to form a pair of stereoisomeric cyanohydrates. So this process occurs via again nucleophilic acyl addition itself, wherein the cyanide nucleophile Cn- is going to attack the electrophilic carbonyl carbon of the aldehyde, thereby the nucleophile will be introduced. A new CC bond will be formed between the aldehyde carbon and the cyano group. So we end up into two pair of stereoisomeric cyanohydrates. Right? A mechanistic of cyanohydrate formation was through the nucleophilic acyl addition, as I said. Building on Killian observation, Emil Fischer then devised a multi-step method for converting a cyano group to an aldehyde. So overall, the net result is the ability to lengthen the chain of the carbohydrate by one more atom. That's why we call it as chain extension. And aldopentose can be converted into aldohexose, pentose to hexose, using this process. Therefore, we call this process as Killian-Fischer synthesis. A more modern version of Killian-Fischer synthesis enables the conversion of the cyano group into an aldehyde in just one step. Rather than several steps, it is just converting into one step. We know that cyano to acid is very easy, but cyano to aldehyde is now being carried out in just one step. This is accompanied further by hydrogenation of the cyano group using a Poisson catalyst, that is PD in hydrogenation in presence of PD, barium sulfate, palladium catalyst, aqueous solution. Under this condition, the cyano group is reduced to give an imine which then undergoes hydrolysis to give aldehyde. So it is an imine here. So in presence of hydrogenation, in presence of palladium and barium sulfate, we are carrying out, right? So we can see that imine intermediate is formed, which upon hydrolysis gives us an aldehyde. So this is in situ, which is happening there, and it is giving us an aldehyde there. So again, a new stereogenic center is being introduced to aldose, tros to tetras, right? From 3 to 4, we have increased the ring here. So this is frequently encountered. Easiest process to do the chain extension in carbohydrates. We have one more process called as all degradation. All degradation is a reverse of Killian-Fischer synthesis. That is reduction of one of the carbon rings, right? From pentose to tetrose, right? This involves removal of carbon atom from an aldose. The aldehyde group is first converted to cyanohydrin, followed by loss of cyanohydrin or hydrocyanide in presence of a base. So we need a base here. Overall, the net result is the ability to shorten a carbohydrate chain by one more carbon atom. So conversion of an aldehyde into a cyano group is accompanied via oxide formation. So via oxide formation it happens, followed by dehydration. The resulting cyanohydrin then loses hydrogen cyanide HCN when treated with a strong base to afford a new carbohydrate that has one less carbon atom than the starting carbohydrates. So overall, from a glucose, if I have started from a glucose an oxime is formed, and oxime in presence of acetic anhydride I form a cyanohydrin. Cyanohydrin will begin with the base, therefore I end up into a arabinose. Arabinose is a 5-membered ring there, 5-membered straight chain of wherein a 6-membered glucose is reduced to 5-membered arabinose. The next one is osazone formation. Glucose will react with phenyl hydrazine hydrate, hydrochloride, and forms a derivative which we call it as osazone derivative, which is bright yellowish in color with needle shape, needle crystals obtained. So this is again phenyl hydrazine hydrate is going to react with the aldehyde carbons as well as with the first OH carbon. Right, because it is being secondary in nature, therefore it will react with that particular hydroxy group. When subsequently corresponding all secondary hydroxy group can be replaced by the phenyl hydrazine. It depends upon what is the number of mole of phenyl hydrazine that I am going to prefer. So depending upon that, the first aldehyde will be replaced, will result in formation of a new C double bond N, and next hydroxy group C double bond N. Next, one more hydroxy group when it is present, then it is been replaced by C double bond N. Correspondingly, all the hydroxy groups that are present. Provided if I have more the mole ratio of the phenyl hydrazine hydrate in the reaction course. So this is one of the derivative that we prepare to identify whether the given monosaccharide is a reducing sugar, a very important derivative that is prepared during the binary or ternary separation and identifying the monosaccharides, carbohydrates. So all the reactions of monosaccharides are indicated here, which we just now discussed. This is acylation. If I have more number of acylating agent, then all the hydroxy groups are going to be acylated. Similarly, methylation. So all the OH are going to be replaced by OCH3 group, that is hydrogen is replaced by the methyl group. So all of them will get methoxylated or as ether formation, right? But if I have only one more, that is in presence of alcohol and HCl, then only one of the alcohol will be replaced, and preferably it will be this alcohol. Reduction I can do in any reducing agent. If I use, then selectively I can reduce my aldehyde as well as I can reduce both aldehyde and the OH group, CH2OH group, right? End up into two carboxyl. Sorry, end up into one of the reduction can be done. Fine. Similarly, oxidation I can reduce both the aldehyde as well as the CH2OH to corresponding carboxylic acid. So all the reactions we have indicated in one slide. To sum up, carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones. In nature, carbohydrates are used for energy storage and structural rigidity. Simple sugars are called monosaccharides and are classified into aldose and ketos depending upon the functionality, oxidizing functionality. Further, we also classify them depending upon the plane, how they rotate the plane of polarized light as D and L, and we saw that aldose aldohexose can be written in open chain form, that is Fischer projection formula, as well as ring form using Havos-Pyronous ring structure. And we also dealt with the reactions, various reactions of monosaccharides, and we saw how to increase the chain length by Clee and Fischer synthesis and also reduce the chain length by Old degradation method. So this was what we covered with respect to carbohydrates. Thank you.